Welcome to Thank You for Your Reply, where we dive deep into the strategies and insights of real estate's most innovative professionals. I'm your host, Rich Pedersen, founder of the Reply AI. At the Reply AI, I take a consultative approach to helping businesses integrate automations and AI tools so they can get back to working on their business, not in it. In each episode of the podcast, we explore the real practices driving success in today's market. No fluff, no pitches, just real conversations with real experts sharing real results. Before we dive in, please make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Your engagement helps keep the show running. Without further ado, here we go. Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Thank You for Your Reply podcast. Today, we're talking to Brenly Tolentino, the co-founder of NUIC Development in New Jersey. Right? Remember that?
Yes.
Thanks for coming in, spending an hour with us this morning. But if you could just start off and kind of introduce the company and how you got started with that.
Yeah, of course. Our company is called NUIC Development. We were founded in 2015. My business partner, Daniel Mirabel, and I used to be real estate agents for a company called a brokerage called Provident Legacy, based out of Bayonne. And Danny and I were both realtors. We were young, 20-year-olds, just, trying to make it big one day. We were just competing. And then, one day we said, hey, why don't we just start our own company? Because we were working with a lot of investors and they were sort of showing us how the business gets done. In 2015, we started our development company called NUIC Development, and we have a special focus in transformation here in Jersey City. And we pretty much specialize in identifying distressed real estate properties where we do a lot of renovations, new construction, new development, things like that. And then we also work with investors who are looking to invest with us. And I guess that pretty much sums it up.
Cool. Yeah. So one of the things that NUIC specializes in is distressed properties, right?
Yes, distressed properties.
Can you walk us through how you identify the properties that are viable and what specific criteria make a distressed property attractive to NUIC?
Yeah, of course. So when we started out, Jersey City was sort of going through Jersey City still is an emerging market, but in the time that we started, it was like just in the cusp of that transition. So at the time, we were young and we pretty much had no experience besides real estate agents. So one of the ways that we identified it when we were just starting out is just the good old fashioned way, knocking on doors. We were just targeting pre-foreclosures and we would create a list. We would just knock on doors on all of these pre-foreclosed properties, which seem distressed, which is windows broken, the front porch, overgrown grass, the typical signs that you would see on a distressed property. And when we would knock on these doors, it must have been like thousands of doors. We literally spent all summer just knocking on doors for like about a year and a half. And that really got us started. And then we would try to get these pre-foreclosures either to a loan modification or we would just end up buying it ourselves, because at that point, a lot of these sellers didn't have any more interest in staying in the property, or they just weren't in a position to renovate it themselves. So we would end up working with the seller, the bank, and we ended up buying the properties on our own, and then we would just renovate them. And that's pretty much what started our career. And at that time, that's the distressed properties that we were looking for. Now, we're focusing a lot more on land and new development projects, because we feel like that's just the best strategy, being that these renovations are getting very high and very expensive. So we'll just we focus more on a lot of the emerging neighborhoods of Jersey City, because Jersey City still has different sections. Like downtown Jersey City is pretty much a luxury market. There's not a lot of room there unless you're doing, like a skyscraper or something like that, or a high rise. So we focus mainly on up and coming neighborhoods that are near downtown Jersey City.
Okay, cool. And so it's more, I guess it makes sense. Like it's more expensive. It starts to be more expensive to renovate a distressed property than it is just to start from from the ground on a new build?
Right. It ends up being the same a lot of times because with a renovation or, like a major renovation, by the time you buy the site, a lot of times the seller wants a lot more than what the property's worth. And then you're dealing with so many
Yeah.
inconsistencies. And then the inconsistency creates a lot of unpredictability when it comes to cost estimating and even planning, design planning, and things like that. You're always finding like these, little walls that you didn't think were there, or like you're just dealing with more obstacles. With a new construction or any new development, it's very predictable because you're starting from scratch, you know what to expect, and it's faster a lot of times because you're dealing with less obstacles.
That
And
makes sense.
also financing for those is also a little bit easier because sometimes when you're working with banks or some investors, it's cheaper to buy the land. So you're raising less money or you're putting up less money out of pocket than to pay for the valuation of an existing structure as
Mhm.
well. So even financing's a little bit easier too.
So one of the things that you guys seem to focus on is first-time home buyers, like targeting kind of younger first-time home buyers that are transitioning from luxury rentals. How does that buyer persona influence your decisions on and how you approach the builds compared to your other developers?
Well, one way where we differentiate ourselves on that spectrum is that we have a very heavy focus on design. A lot of times, the new or first time home buyers are presented with a lot of different options. So, here in this Hudson County area, we have this thing where people call it the Bayonne box. I, I don't know if have you heard of that
No.
before? So, I guess over 2006, right before the crash, like somewhere between like 2004, 2006, and even somewhere around 2010, there were like these cookie cutter homes that people just started naming the Bayonne box. And then all these new constructions all look exactly the same because what happens in design is that, gray and white were trending for a while. So now all of these homes have, white shaker cabinets, gray walls, the same exact design. You see it everywhere else. So because at NUIC Development, we have two businesses. We have a condo business where we pretty much build to sell. And then we have a multifamily business, which we can talk about a little bit later. But on the condo side, we're targeting mainly first time home buyers because at the time when we were starting out and even in the middle of our career, a lot of these new developments that we were building when interest rates were very low, our design was very unique because we have a designer that we work with that comes up with very unique urban designs. We pay a lot of attention to the layout as well. Like we'll try to make sure that the living room is not in the kitchen, for example, or we're not going to force a three-bedroom in like 1,000 square foot space. We'll rather make a two-bedroom. So we'll try to be very different with our layout, our flow, our window, our spaces. We'll try to make them very efficient and even the design. So if white shaker cabinets is something that everybody's doing, we'll try to do something a little bit more different, something that fits the Jersey City urban design because we started out with doing a lot of renovations and we kept a lot of those historical, beautiful architectural features that made it stand out. Like if there's a brick wall, we would, finish the brick wall, even though it's cheaper to just cover it with sheetrock. We would try to make an accent wall, keep a lot of those brick things. Some of our new development design had like industrial ducts in them, and a lot of that stood out to a lot of people and they loved it. So we'll try to differentiate ourselves with design and also the way that the financing gets done because during, I would say like about 3 years ago when interest rates were so low, it was cheaper to buy a house than to rent a house.
Mhm.
So that's why a lot of the buyers that we were working with were first time homeowners and we were targeting a lot of them because If you buy, a $600,000 house, let's just say, or condo space, and your interest rate is at 3% or 3.5%, monthly payment on those is a lot cheaper than what rent was at the time. Now that rates are a little bit higher, we're still, our buyer base is changing a little bit. So right now, what we're seeing is that most of the buyers are people that are looking for bigger space because in New York, a lot of those spaces are very small and very expensive. And you're only, I would say, like a 30-minute train ride away from Jersey City to New York.
Yeah.
Now, if you have a job in Manhattan, your option is Jersey City, Brooklyn, and the Bronx, things like that. So Jersey City is very attractive to a lot of the New York based workers because you're only 30 minutes away and you get a lot more space. You're getting a 1,500 square foot space instead of a 800 square foot space that you're paying, $1 million for.
Yeah.
So a lot of the first time buyers could be anywhere from people in New York who are looking for a commuter or a close commute where you get more space for your dollar, and also even people who live in downtown Jersey City who are looking to get the appreciation on property value where you're only like 10 minutes away from downtown Jersey City, where you're living in, let's say, the neighborhood Jersey City Heights or, Bergen Lafayette or something like that. And a lot of those people tend to be first time home buyers. And some of them are also second time home buyers where they want to invest and get some of that appreciation, but they tend to be first time home buyers that could be from any of those little sectors that I explained.
Mhm. Yeah, as one of my previous guests, she does real estate in New York or in Manhattan, and she was saying that I asked her about like luxury real estate, and she said, "Well, pretty much all real estate in New York is luxury real estate, just
Yeah,
because of the price. I mean, it's like oh,
right. Just the price point, and then you're barely getting outdoor space. We try to do as much outdoor space as possible, so you get a lot more space for the
mhm.
same dollar amount, whether you live in New York or downtown Jersey City or Manhattan. That's what's really driving the Jersey City market. All those people trying to create a good bang for their buck on space.
Do you look at walkability factor too with like when you're picking sites like nearby restaurants, amenities, things like that?
Of course. So most of our sites are located near a light rail station or near a bus station. And then Jersey City is also actively looking to turn into what they call the 15-minute city. So there's already an incentive, like a citywide incentive, where they try to make Jersey City more walkable. So when we do target properties or any site, we try to be within close proximity to public transportation or an area where we see that the city is investing or an area where the city is looking to double down on creating better infrastructure, because one of our advantages too is that we try to stay connected with local politicians, whatever the mayor has going on, or local councilman or councilwoman. We try to listen to the hearings and things like that just to kind of see like where the city's going, and then we'll make our decisions based on things like that.
So I also saw that you have the unboxed philosophy. I don't know if this relates to the Bayonne box, but in semantically, but can you kind of talk about that and share some how that your unconventional thinking has manifested those sort of development projects?
No, of course. I think Unboxed might have something to do with it subconsciously, because what Unboxed really means is that we were just trying to do things a little bit different. Because Danny and I started out as realtors, to become a realtor, you got to get a real estate license first. So when we were doing that for our first, 2 to 3 years, in our career, when we started to get into real estate development, what fascinated us about real estate development is that one day you'll see, like a piece of land, with overgrown grass. And then real estate development allows you to instantly turn that empty site where it has overgrown grass into a school, where now you have, families going in there, they're getting educated. Like now it's something productive to the community and it's something valuable to the community where before it wasn't there. So that's why we have a special focus in transformation. And we always felt like real estate development was a license to do more. And that's what really fascinated us about there. So we have like this thing where we say, you have to be unboxed. You have to think a little bit different about things because that's what real estate development is about. And that's also what separates us from, like the flipper community because, a lot of people like, they use the term like flip homes or like, flipping houses. We don't really see ourselves that way. We see ourselves as transforming neighborhoods of, turning an empty site where there's 3 or 4 boarded up homes into a productive building that now it's generating tax revenue for the community. It's creating jobs because now there's people working there. You're educating the community. Now there's something beautiful there where before there wasn't. So there's a lot of transformation that comes with it. And that's what being unboxed is, just being a little bit different, thinking a little bit different, and always try to find a way to innovate, even if it's on the project management side or financing side, on the design side, like there's always room for something like that. And it takes a special unbox mentality to get there. So
Okay.
that's really like where that came from. We always felt like, just always be unboxed.
Okay. I like that. So what's one of the biggest misconceptions people have about transforming distressed properties into high quality homes, and how do you guys approach that challenge, or how do you guys challenge that myth?
I mean, I guess one of the biggest misconception is that people think it's easy, and it's not easy. It does take a lot of work, and people always say, "Oh, I want to, what I want to do what you guys do," and we always recommend, like we always recommend people to not do it because it's like we make it look easy, but if you look under the hood, it's very complicated. There's a lot of risks that come with it, and you need to have the special stomach for it, especially because you also don't want to come in, and do what everybody else is doing either. People see it like as a get rich quick scheme, and real estate is the opposite of that. Like, you don't get rich quick in real estate, especially real estate development or transforming distressed properties. So there's a lot of misconceptions. People think it's easy. People think it's fast. People think that, you're going to get rich quick doing it. And, we have fun doing what we do, but it's also, like HGTV makes, does a good job at making it seem like it's fun.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that.
You have good days, but then
Yeah.
there's also, bad days.
Mhm.
So that's why we try to sort of, you know, if you go to our Instagram or, whatever we have out, we try to show people what it's like, but it's definitely not easy. We do have fun doing what we do, but sometimes, there's days that it's not fun,
Mhm.
especially when you're going through COVID and rates double and now,
Yeah.
everything kind of changes. And then you have to, number one, be prepared for that. And then number two, you have to be able to adapt and maneuver, you know, the situation in order to still provide returns and still have a successful project. So we try to, I guess, confront those misconceptions by just letting people know and educating them that, you know, it's not easy, it's not really for everyone. And then we also try to address those misconceptions by just constantly educating ourselves and learning about what's going on and what we see happening in the market before it happens, and then to be prepared for it.
Mhm.
So that's usually how we try to manage some of these things. And then something that we also focus on too is that like people always send us stuff from like different markets. I don't know how people do that successfully early on in their careers, because it's advantageous to us to focus in for example, like New Jersey or specifically Hudson County, because we have connections with, like city inspectors because of several projects that we've done. So there's also people that kind of do it in so many different states, so many different neighborhoods, and you can get really in trouble when you try to expand so quickly that way.
So sort of on along those lines, that you have the 7 project on small change, which is
Yes.
a platform that focuses on real estate investments, creating positive neighborhood change. Do you want to talk us through your decision to use that crowdfunding for the project and how that kind of aligns with your mission?
No, of course. Have you heard of Small Change? I'm just curious.
No, not until you mentioned it.
No, so I mean, a little bit of what we were saying earlier about, like innovating and things like that. So again, when we were starting out, we were very young. We were 20, pretty much didn't, we didn't grow up with a silver spoon in our mouth, or we didn't get like $1 million loans from like a rich uncle or something like that. So we really started from scratch, just knocking on doors, taking one project at a time. And what helped us throughout our career were that when we were realtors, we were able to build relationships with a lot of clients, attorneys, sellers that we, you know, sold houses for. A lot of our friends and family, they've seen us grow throughout the years. And a lot of these people always were, wondering like, oh, how do I get involved with you guys? Or, how can I invest in some of these projects? So we were always able to raise money and capital through our friends and family throughout our careers that were able to help us get started throughout the project. And as we started to do more and more projects, we start to become more and more sophisticated on, the process of raising capital, how to structure debt, how to structure equity, getting the right paperwork done, how to protect it, things like that. So as we were getting a lot of these projects funded, when we did the 7, or when we started to work on the 7, we wanted to try something a little bit different, because crowdfunding had been something that we were looking into for a long time, but we were never able to pull the trigger on. So one of our investors that's helping us with a project that we're doing, a 5-story project called Harmony House, we're doing 44 units there. He used to work for a bank, and he said, hey, you guys should look into Small Change. Small Change is a crowdfunding platform that focuses mainly on also transformation, similar to us. And they have metrics to see if that project is transforming that neighborhood or creating a positive change for us. So we said, you know what, let's give it a try. So what we ended up doing with Small Change is we listed a project that we're working on now, which is called the 7. So the 7 is a studio apartment building that we're working on. We currently have the project with the city. We're pulling permits for it, and we're currently raising capital for it. So instead of us doing it our traditional way, where we reach out to our friends and family, or even us, where we put in our own equity into the project, we are putting some of our money into this one, but Small Change allows other people to come in with a little as $1,000. The reason why we wanted to try it out is because we are in Jersey City. We wanted to give some of the local neighbors and the local neighborhood an opportunity to also invest in their own neighborhood. And it gives them a chance to, come in with $1,000, $2,000, whatever they have, where they could also benefit from the growth and the property value appreciation that would come in with the project. A lot of times there's a ongoing conversation about gentrification, because real estate developers have this negative connotation sometimes, where they're looked at these big corporations that come in, they gentrify a neighborhood and they kick all these people out, but what we're able to do with Small Change and our project called the 7 is that we're able to change that conversation. Now, you know, developers are not looked at people who are just kicking out people that are living in the neighborhood and increasing rents. Now they can come in and benefit from that change along with us, along with the city, along with the community. So we felt like this could have been a perfect marriage to kind of just try it out and see how it works with this very unique project, because the Seven is a very unique project. It's going to be a seven studio building with very beautiful lofts. Not only that, but the Seven, the lot where we're building this project, used to be owned by Miss Ruthie, which is, she also owns a jazz club right across the street from us, and is very important, or a very important fixture in the working class section of Jersey City, because for over 50 years, because she was one of the original owners, she made that space much more than just a bar or a jazz club. It's like a community space. And a lot of the residents have been able to congregate there and listen to some of the creative talents that are in the community. A lot of the players that play jazz there grew up in the community. So the lot where we're building the Seven used to be a space where they would do barbecues and things like that. And she no longer needed that space. So we're sort of like paying homage to her and even the jazz club by calling it the Seven. Kind of like a very interesting community project where we felt like small change was perfect for it.
Cool. And so is that something that you're going to keep doing with other projects? Has it been a good experience so far?
Well, we just listed it and we're sort of starting to promote it now. We have a couple of people that have invested into it already. So as of right now, we're trying it out. We want to see where it goes before we commit to trying it with other projects. So we're just trying to see if this is something that could create success. If it does, I think we're 100% open to doing it with another project. But right now, we're just trying it with the Seven, and then we're just trying to see if it could work, you know, and if this is something the community would also wanna do. So we just have to start the marketing. I think this is one of the first times we're publicly talking about it. So now people have a chance to click on the link. We're going to put more information on it on our Instagram, on our website, doing a press release soon where, a lot of people are going to find out about it. So I guess we'll find out.
Yeah,
We'll find
that's
out
right.
soon.
The verdict is still out.
Yeah.
And I looked at it briefly, the link that you sent me, and it's looked like it has to stay up, or it has like 100 and some day funding window. Is it kind of like Kickstarter where you have to, if it doesn't reach the amount that that it doesn't move forward, or is it more
Well,
flexible than that?
I think we have room to extend it if we need to. Ultimately, we're going to move forward regardless, and we're still moving forward now. So
Okay.
we're still moving forward with, our construction financing. We're still moving forward our permitting process, the designing process, preparing the site, cleaning up the site, things like that. So the project is going to be moving forward, regardless of what happens. But on the timeline window for the investment period, that I think we have an option to either extend it or just end it. And then just, take the feedback, learn from it, and then see what we want to do after that timeline expires to see if it's worth extending it, or maybe if we should try it on a bigger project or on a smaller project if we decide to not extend it.
And the Seven, is that a remodel of an old property, or are you building from
No,
scratch?
it's a new building.
Okay.
It's a new development. Right now, it's an empty lot that the jazz club used to use for community gatherings. So right now, it's just an empty lot. So we just want to try it with a new development for now, and then we'll just see if this innovative approach, because our goal is to invite the community to participate.
Yeah.
And, because a lot of what we do is private, meaning that, we're not registered with the SEC or anything like that for us to, publicly advertise things like that. We were able to partner with Small Change to invite the community and see if this is something that they want to participate, because our projects are traditionally reserved for like a select few of people, but through Small Change, anybody can come in, especially if you're in the community. We also wanted to give whoever is interested in doing something with the jazz club in the future, we wanted that community equity that they can also come in and participate as well. But it's a very interesting new development that we're doing. We're going to have commercial space on the first floor, and then the rest of the units are all going to be loft studios. So the top floor is going to have, very high ceilings with access to the roof deck, very urban design, brick walls, a lot of like concrete, things like that. And then even for the commercial space, we're talks into getting a local community retail vendor to take the space. We're willing to work with them as well, partner with them on the community space and really activate the neighborhood.
Okay. Well, so in a sort of competitive metropolitan market that you're in, what specific kind of design elements or amenities have proven most effective in attracting buyers to your properties?
For the condo projects that we're doing, a little bit of what we said earlier about the affordability part of it. We have a big focus on affordability. We're not the company that tries to break records and, top dollar records or anything like that. So part of our underwriting entails sales price that's affordable to, a renter market, where if you're looking to rent a luxury unit, let's say, or just, because our projects are not like high end, like you were saying earlier. Everything in New York is high end because of the, right? But, like a medium to high end pricing on a rental property, let's say you're paying, $5,000 for a 2-bedroom. We want to be able to create a for sale product where your mortgage is going to be more or less around that price point. But with us, you're getting more space, and then you're getting, an urban design or very unique design, really, and not a cookie cutter design. So for the same price where you would rent a high end property, you can get a medium to high end property where you get a very unique design, you get outdoor space, and the same price that you're paying every month is allowing you to build equity on a property that you own that you could sell in the future due to the historical growth that Jersey City has been able to provide over the last couple of years.
Okay.
That's usually what we try to do. On the multifamily side, we're currently working on a 5-story building called Harmony House. Here, we're providing 44 apartment units and 1,800 square feet of retail space on the first floor. So there, what we're also targeting is affordability as well, because a lot of the multifamily projects that, 5 stories or higher, or even, anything over 50 units or under 50 units, again, the price points are very high for what you're getting. So Harmony House is a project that we're working on now. We're currently with the city on this one, applying for permits, or we're waiting for a permit to get approved. Harmony House was a site that was previously owned by the city, and they were looking to work with an up and coming developers like us. We're from the community, and they wanted to give the project to someone within the community and not an outsider, mainly because someone from the community was going to understand what is needed there. And we were able to provide an affordable, large spaced unit that whoever leases the building from us, whenever we're done building it, we're hoping to break ground this year. And when we start leasing, the new tenants that are taking that space are going to be able to get a very affordable unit. So they could get good finishes, outdoor space, they could get an amenity with the retail on the first floor at a good price. Because we're not also, like low income or like medium income developers either. We focus mainly on on the medium affordable, to work housing affordable, something that the everyday person can afford. So that's usually what we target on the multifamily side and even on the for sale product.
Okay. Can you share a major mistake or challenge that you encountered early in NUIC's history and how that experience shaped your current business practice?
An early mistake, there's so many of them. Yeah, there's definitely a lot.
Those are the best. You learn more from those than anything else in success.
I would say an early mistake is, I mean, I guess everyone would say this, but, you know, we do wish we would have kept more of what we were buying early on in our career, that we would hold on to them, but at the same time, we feel like everything kind of happens for a reason because at the end of the day, being able to sell a lot of the projects that we were working on, for sale product is also important for people because in order for you to really change a neighborhood, we believe that home ownership is part of the solution because the more homeowners you have in a particular neighborhood, the more care they provide to that particular, street or neighborhood. Because now, as a renter, sometimes you don't really care if the sidewalk is dirty. You don't really care how the house looks because it's not your house. But as a homeowner, you care about your fence, you care about having a dirty street, you care about too much traffic on that street. So you're going to call the local councilman and ask to put a street light and do a petition with other homeowners that can now vote for it. So it's like it kind of changes the landscape a little bit. And so I think, that quote unquote mistake ended up, teaching us a little bit more about the socioeconomic impact of what our company does to a neighborhood of or what real estate development really does to a neighborhood. So I think, that was a sort of a mistake that ended up teaching us something along the way, or maybe something that I think we probably would have focused on more is focus more on building a team. That's something that we are focusing more on now. When we first started out, we made a really big mistake with a general contractor that we hired, and we ended up giving a deposit, like a large deposit, and sort of like trusting this general contractor too early, where like 4 months down the line, we realized that no work was being done on the project. And now we're delayed, and then now we pretty much lost our deposit. So that made us want to handle a lot of the things with like within ourselves
Internally.
internally. And then it's very hard to scale when you're doing everything yourself. Because now when you're doing a lot of the project management, it becomes very hard to find new opportunities. It becomes very hard to structure capital or raise capital or build relationships, things like that. So over the years, we were able to build a solid team or focus on building a team. But that took a long time for us to get to because of some of those mistakes that we made early on when we felt that handling things on our own was the best way to do it. But then it's very hard to grow. So what we should have done was learn from that mistake and try again and then work with a team, or even you could still do things internally, but maybe have like an in-house team, where now you're building a relationship with the people that are working with you. And like now you're working with people that you trust at that point. And then also something that we learned too is that part of working with capital is that if you partner with people and then you give some equity away, or part of our capital raising approach didn't include giving equity. Giving equity also helped us, partner with people that are not only providing capital, but also skill set to help us have a successful project as well. So it's just like, little lessons like that, I think help us learn and get to the next level.
Yeah. And do you think that the first kind of lesson you were talking about, is that what led you guys to go down like have the outlook of trying to better the community, approaching it to create positive change as a developer versus just looking at the bottom line?
Right. Right, because when you're trying to make a change, like dollar wise versus trying to make a change impact wise are two different kinds of things,
Yeah.
right? So I think, yeah, a lot of that led us into it because even when we were putting Harmony House together, that one was and still is a milestone project for us because a lot of the new development that we were working with at the time were, like a four-family house or two-family house or two family houses side by side. You know, Harmony House, we're talking a 5-story, 44 unit project with retail space. So that was a milestone project for us that when we were first learning about it, we didn't realize or learn like, okay, where do we even start here? Like how do we even put the money together? How do we get the construction management, budget together? How do we even get financing for this, permitting? So these were all learning curves that we had to learn along the way. Our last, 8 years in the field helped us build relationships with other developers, like Paul Silverman or, Ben LaPiccolo or Kenneth Pasternak. These are all developers that helped us throughout our career you know, since we were like in our early teens. They were always people that we looked up to. And these were developers with successful companies that also had a special focus in change and transformation. So when we looked at these people and mentors to us, they were very open to teaching us. And a lot of people are not really as open to doing them. So we were blessed that they were able to, open up their doors and show us, sort of like their way, their process. Every time we had a question, they were always open for a sit down. They were always open for a lunch. They were always open to, sort of have a conversation with us and teach us the way. And, they never handed anything to us, but they were always providing information and mentorship, and they were able to see that we were doing things and growing with that information. And I think that helped them give us more and help us more. And they knew they weren't wasting their time because I'm sure that there's a lot of people that you probably give advice to and you feel like, oh, they're just wasting my time or they're not really doing anything about it. Even, this company called Hoboken Brownstone, George Vallone and Dan Gantz, they were also able to help us out through a lot. And we met a lot of these people through a summit called Jersey City Summit. And they have a summit every single year where they have the biggest, developers in Jersey City, like even the Kushners, they're like on these panels talking about their projects. And we found out about the summit, and then we just started out as volunteers. We said, hey, let's volunteer. We couldn't afford a ticket to attend the summit. So as volunteers, we just showed up. We were given the task to walk a lot of these panelists to the stage. And then on our way there, we were literally in the elevator walking them up. And that was like literally an elevator pitch. We met them through the front door, took Paul Silverman and, all these people to the room where they would be waiting to speak. And then we would just ask them questions. We would get to know them. We would tell them about our company, like, hey, we're so and so. This is what we're up to. We want to be like you guys one day. And then we would just ask random questions. And then, they were so open, they would give us their business cards. We followed up with an email. It's like, yeah, this is how we got started. This is what we did. You guys are on the right way. You guys should focus on that. Then we would send emails and they always responded. They were always open for lunch. They were always open for something. So we learned about transformation, development, through them. And then that pretty much shaped how we see real estate development and the purpose of real estate development today. So that was just an interesting, way that we kind of started to look at things. That it's not just about making money. You're going to get there at some point. It's also about making impact, and it's also about creating a positive change. You're going to get to the money one way or another. It's just a different way of getting there, because if you're just focusing on making money, then yeah, you just take a site, you do whatever you want to it, you put it back on the market, you make your money and then go home. We want to be a little bit more purposeful than that.
And
You know, I,
be able to sleep good at night.
you want to sleep good at night. You want to feel like you're what you're doing and what you're working so hard for every day. You want to be purpose driven. You know, Obviously there's a business plan and a pro forma in place and underwriting that goes to it because we want to provide our investors with above average returns. And then even the company, we have overhead. So, obviously there's a pro forma that goes into it, but the deeper thought is more about being a little bit more purposeful with the day-to-day challenges and work that we go through.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, on that subject, can you share a specific example of how one of your developments has positively transformed a neighborhood?
There's definitely a few, but as far as like positively changing the neighborhood, I think it's hard to sort of like put that on a metric because some people see it as a gentrification, some people see it as positive change. But something that we notice is that the minute we get into a site and we start working on it, whether it's, cutting the grass and preparing the site to build the foundation, like, and then once the building starts to take shape and the facade is on, the windows are on, as soon as we get to that point of the project where you see the aesthetics of it, the neighbors are coming out, they're asking questions, and like little by little they start to paint their fence, they start to paint their door, they start to like replace their windows. So that's something that we see instantly. As soon as we start, working on something, automatically, at least 5 or 6 neighboring properties, they automatically start to improve their property. So that alone is kind of creating a positive change because now it shows like, wow, that's such a beautiful building. Let me see what I can do. Let me see, if there's something I can do because now they care a little bit more.
Hmm.
Now they want to,
And more pride in their
right,
place.
there's more pride, or now they're thinking, because even when they talk to us about it, they're like, oh, I love the color, where'd you guys get this, or how did you guys do that? So now there's a little bit more pride that goes into it, and there's more of a community bonding that happens because now, all the neighbors start to talk to each other. We exchange phone numbers because we always want to know, hey, if there's anything weird that you see going on the project, make sure you call us first. So then they start to connect us with the different neighbors and like they start to work on their houses, so little things like that, I think creates a positive change. And then, even, when we end up selling these projects, a lot of the neighbors start to associate and build the relationships with the new neighbors, who are coming from different parts of Manhattan or New York and things like that. And then now another positive change is like now you have, let's say we build a 4-family house, for example. Now there's 4 new homeowners that live there and own something. So now there's 4 families there that's buying coffee in the nearest coffee shop, so that now there's more revenue going on. So we see a lot of things like that happening where they start to go to the local stores, they start to spend money there, they start to, promote that business. Or even when we do our marketing, we do promote local businesses as well. And a lot of that helps the community.
Yeah, so it's like you're like seeding the community with community, like
Yeah,
making it become more of a community by sort of modeling the behavior in a way.
right, of course, because, that's part of the benefit. So that's why it's hard to put a metric on it because people call it gentrification, but you are creating a positive change because now you took a non-performing, lot into an income producing, revenue generating asset for the city and the local neighbors and the neighborhood. And then now the neighbors' property values automatically go up. So now it's a win-win for everyone. Now the city's getting more tax revenue, and now they can take that revenue and do whatever they want with the Board of Education. That's up to the city at that point, what they do with those funds. But those are just automatic positive changes that we see. Even for Harmony House, once the building is fully leased. Now you have 44 rental apartments. Then now you have more options for people to move in, 44 options for people to move into, where now you're providing more supply to feed some of the demand. And now you're lowering rental values because now you have more supply. So it kind of win-wins in a lot of different ways.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Brenly, for spending time with us this morning to talk about NUIC. And I'll make sure and also to put just a reminder, we were talking earlier about small change development you guys are doing. Make sure to I'll put that in the show notes. So look out for that. Anyone that's interested in throwing a little small change at that, or big change. Throw some small change for some big change.
Yeah, I like that. And you make some small change, or you make big change along the way.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you, Brenly.
That wraps up another episode of Thank You for Your Reply. To our listeners, you can find show notes and links below this video, or if you're on audio, it'll be in the show description. If you enjoyed the episode, please like and subscribe so you'll be able to catch the new episodes when they drop. If you'd like to talk to me about how you can optimize your business with tried and true AI technology, please head on over to thereply.ai to get in touch. Until next time, keep innovating, keep growing, and remember, you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems.